Welcome everybody. Sorry for the late start. We are there's a few groups in around Expo trying to find us, so I apologise. I know a lot of you are on tight schedule, so I apologise for starting 15 minutes behind schedule. Thank you so much for coming. This is the end of a long 6 months for Think Global School in Dubai, and just coming to see a little glimpse of our world it means a lot to us. The students have put themselves out there with the projects that you see, which was the result of 7 weeks hard work. The projects, a lot of them are meant to be a launch pad into something else. We're going on to Mexico after a great time in Dubai, and our other cohort will actually be coming into Dubai in January. So I think Global School will be in Dubai for a considerable amount of time in the, hopefully, the post-pandemic era, but let's see about that. If there's any questions, the staff will be in and around the expo, and if there's any questions about the school, how it operates. Anyone who has helped us this term, there's so many people, from Project U, Ray from School of Humanities helps us so much. We've had guest speakers like Jamie. Warren, thank you for your hospitality. I know we drove you mad probably most days in the conference rooms, but you've always been super polite to us over in the classrooms. There's so many other people that I'll go around and say thank you to, and the parents who are here, giving us your sons and daughters, and trusting us is huge. We've got a very special guest speaker, which is Jonathan. So guest speaker is probably over 88, but a welcoming speaker. Jonathan is at some of the biggest and best schools across the UK. He's now one of the biggest consultants in the UAE, and I met Jonathan at the GESS conference last week, where we as a school, Think Global School, got a wonderful welcome from the team there, and Jonathan agreed my very impromptu request just to say, after working in so many prestigious schools, especially in the UK, just to say a few words on what we call disruptive education and what Think Global School are trying to do in the world. And Jonathan kindly agreed to my last minute demand, so I'm very grateful, my friend. So the floor for a few minutes is yours, and then I'll come up and welcome our guest speakers from the student body who are going to say a little bit on the future of education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Russell, for stitching me up, volunteering me. Any notes I've had just gone straight out the window, because what I've seen here today is the ultimate disruptive education. In that it's education, it's not teaching. Remembering education is what you remember when all the teaching is forgotten, and that's a really important part. I'm very fortunate to have run different schools, including a free school over here, a very conventional school, where we really went around saying you can only learn if you're wearing a tie and a blazer, because that's the only way you should learn. And so that was one form of education. To another form of education where the school I ran back in the UK, one of the schools I ran back in the UK, was very much based on failure and how important it was to learn how to fail. And I was delighted to hear that when in your camping and your hiking trips, you got lost. Because the most important thing to do is to learn to get lost and then find yourself again. And what I've seen here, just detecting, is ultimate disruptive education. It is about developing all those parts of us. We all have an IQ, and I haven't got time to talk about plastic IQs, but all of us have abilities to learn and develop. And one of the companies I'm involved with, High Performance Learning, is based on this idea that everybody has massive potential. They're not half the population below average, and half above average. Everybody has potential. It's really important to develop that. And these brains in here, mine's less flexible because I'm very old, but all these brains here are very flexible. So our IQs are really important. I've seen some of the project work which has been stretching your IQ quite a lot, which is important. But the other aspects of being, and what disruptive education is about, is developing the other quotients, which are harder to measure. And the big problem about education is we only value what we can measure. And actually what's really important in life is immeasurable. You can't measure kindness. You can't measure happiness. You can't measure resilience. You can't measure perseverance. You can't measure those abilities which are really important. And I was saying to Zoya, yeah, she's outside. She heard, and that's what she said. But actually, it's that who ultimately education is about wanted to share a desert island with somebody. But when you put your fantasy figure away, and actually sharing desert island with fantasy figures is not attractive, but actually you want a decent balanced human being. He's got a good IQ, he's got a good emotional intelligence, and you lot have learned to live with 30 other strange people, even though you might quite strange yourself, and that's a huge EQ, your emotional quotient, your PQ, your physical quotient, which some of you learn. Steep hills in Fujairah and the Hajj Mountains are quite steep, but you learned about your physical prowess and your physical quotient. But I hope that you also develop your SQ, which is your spiritual quotient. And hopefully, lying outside and watching those stars from the desert, you go, wow, wow. Awe and wonder and creativity come from that. So I will shut up and you can listen to the proper people. But actually, because they've done it, I've really talked it and seen it. But thank you. I've been so enlightened by what I've seen already. And well done to the parents who are bold enough to do this. And I'm delighted to then go out saying, wow, this is proper education. And you lot will be rolling the stone of the world to move it and make it a bit better. And that's actually the object of education. I will shut up and sit down.
Okay, I would like to welcome to the stage two students. What the point of the next few conversations will be, the students have generated their own talks on what the future of education could look like. We'll be talking about assessment, service learning, which we're very passionate about at Think Local School, and some of the stories, I think, why students joined the school and looked for different education and different educational models. So the next two speakers kind of work in tandem, so I'll introduce them one at a time, but they'll go together. That is Alex, who will be talking about assessment part 1, and part 2 will be Naomi. So Alex, welcome to the stage.
Hello everyone. Hello, my name, as Russell introduced, my name is Alex. I'm a grade 12 student, and today I am proudly standing here. Apparently we have some.
All right, I'll do it for you, Alex.
Today, sorry for the technical issues. Today, I'm here to talk about the future of schooling, starting with my own personal story. So, this is a transcript. This is my transcript from my previous school. As you can see, some of you recall from your high school time, maybe 30 years ago. Very traditional subject in here. So, but here's where the problem lies in. And this is Vietnamese, but this English, as you can see, we have physics. So let me explain a little bit. Back then in my school, we have the excellent student title, awarded to students who have achieved like an average point above 8 in all 13 subjects like this. And I really want that. Oh my gosh, I worked tirelessly day and night for that exam after exam. I crammed everything I can to achieve that. And then everything was ruined just because of physics. 2 years of effort, countless of all-nighters gone all away just because of physics. And I absolutely hate it. And I don't believe that I can study physics. That is not the thing for me. And I think that maybe I'm not that kind of Asian monster. I don't have physics gene in myself. But when I come to TGS, I feel so happy because I think that's it. I can leave physics behind. I don't have to tackle it anymore. So I tried as hard as possible to avoid physics-related projects. And well, I succeeded in the first 2 terms. But then when in term 3, I was forced to face with my own enemy. Because if you look at these 3 prompt questions, those are the prompt questions from the term modules. My colleague Noemi will explain a little bit clearer about the modules. But as you can see, this is the modules that I've chosen mainly because this is the only thing that I can understand the prompt question. So sorry, I'm not very good at STEM. So as you can see in here, I have to build the strongest bridge from scratch, and that relates a lot to physics. I need to do a lot of physics. But it turns out to be one of my best models so far at TBS. And to demonstrate that, I will show you my process portfolio here. So the process portfolio is a document where teachers, we students put the photos, the notes, and the reflection, basically everything to demonstrate the process of carrying out a project goes into this document. So you don't need to dive in all this calculation. I know it's very confusing, boring, no one wants to interest no one wants to pay attention. But if you look at this is where I use physics to build, to sketch a bridge. And then I calculated in a computer program, and then finally, with some magic, I made a physical bridge with a lot of calculation up here. This is also another demonstration taken from my process portfolio, where I use physics to calculate a lot of forces. So if you're interested in construction, I can walk you through my models later in the exhibition. And then, like, for distant models, I actually also apply a lot of physics in my final products, which I will walk you through later in the exhibition. And it came.
Go back.
And then it came to my attention, and I asked myself this question: Alex, when did you become interested in physics? You have never become interested in that. And I realized that the reason why I think I cannot learn physics is because there's a paradox in education. I can learn physics, and I have the ability to learn physics, but that paradox, I'm going to explain it. So how many of you actually open the book after every physics exam? You look at the one exercise and you say, oh my gosh, I forgot the Newton law of motion. I need to relearn it. Nobody does that, right? Who opens the book after the exam and say, oh my gosh, I didn't do it right, I need to redo it. No, we just let it slide. If we pass the exam, who cares, right? And so by that way, the gap is widened, and gap builds up after gap. We eventually become clueless in a subject. That is how I become clueless in physics. And then when you are clueless, why, and how can you maintain your interest in it, right? You cannot be interested in something that you don't understand. And that is how the exam-oriented system, widening the gaps in knowledge and killing the students' curiosity and interest. And I found a solution for myself, which is a student-driven curriculum at Think Global School. So this piece is the table of excellence. At Think Global School, whenever we start a project, we have to fill in this table of excellence. And this is an excellent way to tackle self-development, because all the skills that we want to learn, no matter how small, how personal it is, it goes into here. It can be something very small, such as like note-taking, organizing, or like adaptable, to something bigger like project management, time management, communication, etc. Everything can go in here, and you have countless skills that can go in here, as long as you can manage it though. And the second piece that I'd like to introduce in here is a rubric. So this is where we tackle more academic knowledge. This is a more formalized assessment. So maybe you might be used to this. So we have the learning target in here, which is broken down into 3 levels, which is novice, specialist, and mastery. We have around 100 learning targets in our school. However, the interesting thing is that we do not have to achieve mastery in everything, or even specialist in everything, because no one can be good at everything, right? You cannot be a master in physics, in art, in history, in everything. Yeah, we can just be good in a few subjects. And so that is how we students are encouraged to tackle our focus. And another interesting thing is that at Think Global School, you have the privilege to choose a learning target, navigate it, and then circle back to it if you feel that you haven't done enough. So it's a little bit difficult to see afar, I know, but this column is novice, this column is specialist, the green point in here is like the level that I have achieved. So actually this learning target in history is actually I achieved novice, in one of my first projects. But I feel that I'm very interested in history, and this is one of the useful learning targets for me, and it can help me with my future career. And that is why and how I choose to tackle it again in a different project, and that is how I achieved the next level specialist in another project. And so by encouraging students to choose whatever learning target they want and go with the pace that they want, we have the freedom to design our own curriculum and to participate in design our own path of learning. So let me circle back a little bit to the theme of the expo this year, which is future, right? So the future is changing, and it's changing fast. If you take a look at this, this is a Motorola phone from '73 with 20 minutes of battery, not very long, right? I don't think you can run around with this now. I would call it a brick, not a phone though. This is a Nokia with our childhood games, the Snake games from '98, and then less than 10 years after that, we have touchscreen introduced by Steve Jobs with iPhone. The whole world went crazy after this. We see it everywhere nowadays. But then now this year, the touch screen becomes flip screen that you can actually fold in two. How interesting is that? And so again, the future is changing very fast. How do we adapt with it? How do we move on and keep up with the pace of the change? Because we want to be this very stylish Galaxy Gen Z. We don't want to be this Motorola from '73. We don't want to be this Nokia, right? And so the question is, the answer is lies in one of our core values, which is called Yu. In English, it's called the thirst for knowledge. The thirst for knowledge is what motivates us to fulfill our curiosity. It encourages us to make more questions and to go and seek for the answer of that question in the real life world. And at teachers, that is where the student-driven curriculum comes in. Because at teachers, when we learn to create our own path in the school, when we grow up and we fly out of school, we graduate, we know how to choose our learning target. We know how to design the learning target for ourselves, even after years after graduation. And that learning target may not go into the rubric. It might not be translated to grade, but it can translate it into our career. It translates it into our self-development. It doesn't make better grade for us, but it makes better people. It makes better change maker for the society. And that is how we change the world. That is how we become change maker. And in the end, I would like to say that if you want to pass a school exam, again, you learn knowledge. But if you want to pass life exam, and I guarantee to you that life will throw to us a lot of exams, and the type of exam will change a lot. You need to learn how to think and what to learn. And let's hope that with this solution provided by our teachers, curriculum, the next 3 generations of students will not have to suffer with physics like me. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Alex. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Thomas, and I come from New Zealand. I'm a grade 12 at Think Global School. So today, I'm here to talk to you about the future of schooling rethinking assessment. So, in 2020, Forbes came out with an article listing the top skills looked for in potential employees by future employers. Among these were critical thinking analysis, coordinating with others, negotiation, and creativity. Now, if these skills are so important for us to have later on in life, how is the traditional schooling method teaching us these? In short, it's not. So, at TGS, there's a lot of things that we do differently. We have our modules, which is an immersive, we don't have set classrooms. However, this part of TGS usually catches people out the most. So after we've done all of these subjects and everything, we are the ones to assess ourselves. I know what you're thinking. It's crazy. How would you let a group of 15 to 18-year-olds be in charge of their own grades? I know, I thought the same before I joined. However, let me explain. how a small change in the way we assess ourselves creates a huge shift in the way that we learn. So, who here has done a test before where they might not have done really, like they might not have studied much for, or they might not have done very well. And when the results came back, they remember their parents saying, "What is this?" And you're like, "Oh no, everybody did bad. It wasn't just me. No, I really did well. It's just the teacher hates you. That's why they gave me a bad grade. It wasn't just because I didn't study for it." Anyway, at TGS, students don't have the ability to do that. We don't have the chance to put a test on a desk and then run away. Forget about it. At TGS, once that we have done our modules and everything, we have to sit down with a mentor that has been a supervisor throughout our whole project and go through our whole process. How did we achieve the grade we want to achieve? No, it's not as easy as saying, "I deserve an A," and then they'll be like, "Okay," and run away. It would be great if it was, it'd be so much easier. But we have to explain how we stuck to a timeline, how we achieved the criteria we set for ourselves, and why we deserve a grade. And then the educator might say, "Yes, I do agree you deserve this grade because you achieved this, this, and this," or "No, I don't agree, you deserve a different grade." How does this change anything at all? How does this relate to what I talked about at the start with the skills? So, understanding that we will be the ones to analyze ourselves and assess ourselves at the end of the program. Analyze ourselves. That means that first off, we have to understand the criteria completely because we have to be the ones to understand it to then apply it to ourselves. Then, I must look at the amount of work I have to do throughout the term and make myself a timeline. How will I achieve what I want to achieve in the set time I have? I'm going to set myself deadlines and checkpoints to stay up to date with. Then I must stay engaged and actively learning and curious so that at the end of the process, I can sit down with my mentor who has been surveying the whole process and be proud and happy with what I'm putting forward. So, critical thinking and analysis. This way, I have to critically think about the work that I'm doing. How does this achieve the rubric? How does the rubric fit into what I'm doing? I must understand my work fully and then analyze my process. So, TGS, we use learning targets, as Alex showed. There are different levels at which we can achieve it. Novice using specific vocabulary, such as understand, remember. This is the basic level of understanding, just general knowledge. Then we have specialists, evaluate, analyze, and apply. Then, at the top is mastery. To achieve mastery, the student must show that they understand the topic well enough that they would be able to teach it. Only then, once that we have shown that we completely understand and have achieved the specific criteria with specific vocabulary, then may we get the grade that we want. Coordinating with others and negotiation. Coordinating with others is a huge thing because to set up the exit interview, I must coordinate with my educator and mentor to set up a time, a date, and a place that works well for both parties for the exit interview. And negotiation. When it comes to exit interviews, I have fine-tuned my skill of negotiation. I like discussing and debating with my edu mentor that I deserve a specific learning target when they might think, It happens a lot. And sometimes they'll say, yes, okay, you make a good point. You do deserve this. And sometimes they'll say, no, maybe you just have to try it again in another project. However, by going through this process, I understand how to communicate my point and my beliefs in a clear and professional way. Negotiation is something that not everybody knows how to do. However, everybody will use it at some point in their life. Creativity. So, this is a big one. Because sometimes, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I did use a learning target about government systems in a personal project about crocheting, but I do deserve it because I used a specific thread that was made in the political turmoil of Egypt, and I created an informational infographic about the connection between threads and governments. you being able to utilize what is at hand to fit something into where it usually wouldn't make sense, but now it does because you're able to adapt it in a certain way, is a really big skill. Overall, I hope you guys have learned something about how we assess at TGS and how, in a world where everything is changing in terms of education, and we know that so many things have to change because the way we're learning is no longer sustainable, making a small shift in the way that we assess ourselves creates a huge change in the way your students will learn, equipping your students with skills that they will use and that will benefit them to an endless extent once that they leave and they will use in the future. I hope you guys will join us along the path into a brighter and smarter educational future. I would like to take this time to just have maybe a brainstorm session about maybe how you guys could implement or think about how schools without the resources to completely change their new curriculum into a project-based learning and new assessment could somehow change the way we assess. Any ideas?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
How could a school that maybe doesn't have the resources to completely change the curriculum and do student-based assessment implement a small change that could be on the path to change?
Doing the projects?
In terms of assessment.
Maybe at the end of the year, you could have like students assess themselves. Maybe it wouldn't go on the transcript, but just to get comfortable with that idea and kind of understand what it's like to rank yourself and be honest with yourself, that could be a good way to do it with little resources.
The importance of reflection and making sure reflection time is built into the curriculum. It doesn't cost anything, but actually it's a really important tool to move forward.
Yeah. I know a great idea is separating and grading skills and effort at the end, looking at how your student has been, what effort they've been putting in compared to the grades they got. That way saying, okay, maybe you didn't get the grade, but you tried really hard, and that way you get an A for that, even though maybe you only got a B. Thank you so much for listening to the talk, and I will hand it back to you.